If you're going to put AI to work in your team, you need to observe it. You need to be able to inspect it. You need to understand what tools is it using. You need to understand why is it reasoning in that way.
It's almost like the IT version of HR, where you might have an HR person or a manager checking in on your performance, and in the same way you have these tools, these technologies that are going to be checking in on the agents to figure out if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
And they're not off at the bar drinking at 4 in the afternoon, right?
That's right, checking out at 10.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop.
And I'm GeekWire co-founder John Cook.
Hey, we've got a great show for you. Coming up later on, I was already on location at Amazon Web Services reInvent.
You survived, huh?
I did. It's
a week in Vegas. I can't believe you're back in Seattle.
But I had a great conversation before I left with Colleen Aubrey, who is the Senior Vice President of Applied AI Solutions at Amazon Web Services and a member of the S team, Amazon's senior leadership team. And we talked about all sorts of interesting things that Amazon is doing more at the application layer of AI. So not just the nitty-gritty building blocks that was a big focus of reInvent, their annual cloud conference, but the stuff that's sort of bubbling up from that Amazon is doing more at the application layer. So
can't wait to hear it.
Yeah, so stick around for that. But first, John, I wanted to pull you in for just a quick catch up on a couple of different items. It was about 2 weeks ago, I think, that you and I were sitting in here lamenting the fact that Amazon doesn't seem to be experimenting in the Seattle region like it used to. And I swear, that Friday afternoon, I was literally sitting there doing the final edit on that episode for the Saturday morning podcast. And we got a tip, an anonymous tip from somebody who said, hey, you know that site on 15th in Ballard? Hey, look up the permit filings.
Which we should set the context for those that aren't in Seattle, where Ballard is. It basically sits between our two houses and the GeekWire offices.
Yes.
It's like, it is so close to our world.
They couldn't have served this up better for us.
Yes,
And in fact,
we drive by this daily.
That's right. So for folks who are in Seattle, this was the site of the Amazon Fresh Pickup that Amazon opened pre-pandemic.
And for the old timers,
it
was the site of Louis Cuisine
of China,
yes,
in fact.
Yes.
So Amazon occupied this space for many years as the Amazon Fresh Pickup location, and they actually have had it closed for a number of years now. And what they're going to be doing from this facility turned out to be a scoop. So I looked up the permit filing, and it could not have been served up on a platter if it was still Louis. Better for us.
Some egg rolls and chow mein with it. Yeah.
It was the municipal permitting equivalent of a Chinese buffet because it was amazing.
Yes.
It was amazing. So they literally have a document in the permits that explains exactly what they're doing. And just a little bit of reporting nitty-gritty. This is so rare. Usually you have to look for a mistaken logo on a blueprint or a reference to somebody who you look up on LinkedIn and they're connected to Amazon. But literally there was a one-page document that explained exactly what they're going to be doing at this facility. And I have a theory as to why they did it that way.
Well, I have a theory too on the tip that came in, which I think it was an anonymous tip.
It was anonymous, yes.
Yes. I think it was perhaps set up.
You think so?
You. I think so. Because it was all there for the taking.
Don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for me. You think I was manipulated into...
No. Somebody wanted the word out on it.
I'm not so sure. Because it was a week before their big announcement. So
we did get the scoop on it, and we were out in front of it, yeah.
I don't think it was like a PR manipulation because there would be no incentive for doing that.
Well, you get 2 bites at the apple on the story.
Maybe. Okay. Okay. At any rate, the one-pager basically explained that Amazon was going to be doing ultra-fast delivery from this location as an extension of its Amazon Flex service. And for folks who don't know what that is, it's this kind of like Uber for packages that they've been doing for a number of years all across the country. And so the idea is that it's kind of like a retail store, except the customers are represented by Amazon Flex drivers. That's how they presented it.
It's not a retail store in the sense that anyone would go in there and purchase anything.
No, you purchase it online and then the Flex driver picks it up for you.
Yeah.
But it's interesting.
It's a hub and a delivery network.
Now that's the question. And I don't think it's as much of an issue at this location, but it was clear from that one-page filing that Amazon is positioning this as a retail location where the shoppers just happen to be delivery drivers. And the reason I think they're doing that is because they're going to run into land use and zoning issues in other markets where they expand and roll out this service eventually.
Yeah. They can't maybe be in as urban of a location
with a distribution
warehouse
center
or distribution type of facility.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would say if you turned in this one pager as like a high school paper, the teacher would have said that your reasoning was a little bit tortured. It was really obvious that they were trying to fit a round peg into a square hole effectively. And I don't think it's going to be as much of an issue at this location just because of where it is. It's kind of an urban industrial core right there on 15th.
Yeah, it's close to an urban part of the city. I mean, It's a very dense part of the city.
But also pretty close to some industrial uses. I mean, if you go...
Brewery District is right there. That's correct. Yeah.
So Amazon then announced this service called Amazon Now, and it's launching initially in Seattle and Philadelphia. And our colleague Curt Schlosser got to try it out. 23 minutes from click or tap in the app to delivery on the doorstep. 23 minutes.
Todd?
Yes.
I've got one word for you.
Yes.
Do you know where I'm going?
I know where I would go with it, but let's hear it.
Cosmo.com.
Oh, that's not where I was going to go.
Do you remember Cosmo.com?
Well, yes. I came in on the tail end of Cosmo. Tell the story.
This was a much ballyhooed .com era company backed by Starbucks with a local connection.
I did not know that.
And they flamed out in a big ball of flames.
I remember that.
The same idea of delivering DVDs, snacks.
DVDs.
Yeah, this is way back in the day. And highly, highly criticized that people would make these small purchases and then have them delivered in under an hour.
Yes.
And
not exactly part of the climate pledge here.
Part of the yeah, right. That's exactly right. Part of the .com bust. They did not make it. So
now,
this is essentially what they're doing.
Yes. And one of the things that they emphasized in that one pager was that a lot of these deliveries could happen via e-bike and electric vehicles.
Cosmo did that too.
Oh,
Cosmo did bike messengers.
Were there bike messengers?
Yeah.
Probably not e-bike
Probably
at the
not
time.
E-bikes at that
unless
time,
they were on a moped.
But had they survived, I'm sure they'd be using e-bikes.
Yes. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you see.
All these ideas circulate back. And I think we talked about this on the podcast a couple of weeks ago. Amazon's been trying to crack this nut forever.
In so many different ways.
And I mean, this is, 20 plus years ago they were trying to do this.
Yeah, Cosmo was. And now you have Amazon still doing it. Amazon, if I remember correctly, they first launched Amazon Fresh in 2007 in Seattle. And so to me, that's sort of the beginning point of them trying to figure out grocery delivery in particular. And I think this is in many ways an extension of that historical legacy.
Circling back, I had forgotten this. This is the overview I just got. Amazon was a significant investor in Cosmo.com, pouring in $60 million in March 2000. As part of a larger funding round. I remember the partnership with Starbucks. I had forgotten that Amazon was actually a backer.
Interesting.
And Amazon was also a backer of homegrocer.com.
That's right.
And I think if you go to homegrocer.com, even to this day, which was a service that was very popular here in the Seattle area, it used to take you to Amazon. It does not look like that happens anymore.
Well, Curt's story was really good. Check it out. And this was kind of cool to me because it was kind of a throwback in some ways to the lost era that we were lamenting during that recent podcast.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully there is more experimentation that we get to cover. These are fun stories to dig up, whether they're handed to us or we have actual tipsters, which we should encourage.
Yes.
Always send us tips. Tips at GeekWire.com. Very simple. We're always open for tips. anything you're seeing or hearing out there, send them our way. We welcome these tips. And we follow up and write stories about them.
We do after we check to see if they're legitimate.
It's actually factual.
And I should say also, there is a form that you can use, geekwire.com/tips, where you have the option of sending the tip purely anonymously. Now, I prefer it to have the email. If you can trust us, we'll keep it anonymous if you want. And that's mostly just for follow-ups to be able to thank you or to ask you for additional information. But if you want to send just anonymously, knowing that we will follow up and verify it, geekwire.com/tips.
Well, another experimental service, Todd,
Yes.
when we were talking about how Amazon doesn't experiment or do anything fun anymore, but boy, you got to experience an extremely fun Amazon service when you were in Vegas, and I can't wait to hear the story behind it.
Yes, and this is another one that goes back, following the thread, to your experience in Pittsburgh in 2018, where you had just an awful, like legendarily awful,
it was
ride
terrifying
in a self-driving Uber car
terrifying.
back when
It
they
did
were
not work.
testing those.
You don't want to be in a self-driving car that's not working.
No. Now, to be fair, that was a time when they had drivers,
Yes,
not
thank
drivers,
God.
but people monitoring the
Yes.
car in the driver's seat. It was more of
It's necessary.
a test period. Now, you've used Waymo in San Francisco
I'm a
as well.
big Waymo fan. I thought it was excellent. Now I know they're under a lot of criticism in San Francisco because
Well,
of the
the cat.
that got run over. So maybe that's a tragic situation there.
It is. It is more tragic because of the circumstances, because that could have very easily been a human driver, but I don't want to come off like a techno apologist. Yes, the Waymo killed the cat from that bodega in the Castro district, and it's awful. I love cats.
All right, moving on.
In each of those cases, and in many other cases, Uber, Waymo, what they've done is they've retrofitted existing cars. Amazon acquired a company several years back called Zoox, Zoox. And the difference with Zoox is, from the ground up, they built a self-driving robotaxi.
It doesn't resemble a car.
No,
doesn't have
it resembles like a trolley,
Yeah, it doesn't
like
have
a people
gas
mover.
pedal. It
No,
doesn't have a steering wheel, right?
No, it is meant to be exactly what it is. It's not retrofit from an existing vehicle. And we got to ride it, the GeekWire team, myself and several members of our GeekWire Studios team, our content production arm, that was there doing a really great booth at AWS reInvent. In fact, which is where I interviewed Colleen Aubrey coming up in the next segment. So on Wednesday night, after I did that interview with Colleen, I said to them, hey, come on, let's go try the Zoox. So Brian Westbrook and Steph Strickland and Jessica Reeves and Holly Grambler and I went to the Fashion Show Mall between the Nordstrom and the Trump International Tower, which is one of the locations in Las Vegas where these Zoox vehicles are available. There's only 7 spots. You can only go between 7 spots. And we tried it out, and it was so cool. The idea that you can sit almost in this kind of like rolling living room. So it's 2 seats on one side facing backwards, 2 seats on the other side facing forward. And there's this kind of like Starfield ceiling.
It looked very Vegas.
It was very Vegas. And it is essentially like a 12-foot long trolley. My joke was our toaster has arrived. It looks like a giant toaster.
Yeah.
and I got to say, it was really cool. It was not as high quality as a Waymo Jaguar. Of course, very few things are going to have the quality of a Jaguar. It felt more like Brian Westbrook used the analogy of kind of like a Disneyland ride. And I kind of agree with that. It wasn't that cheap. It had...
What did it cost to go?
Nothing. No, when I say...
that's right.
They're
They're free in Vegas,
right.
right?
And
Which surprised me.
When I say cheap, I'm talking about the build materials of the vehicle.
Okay.
Like, it felt like it was well put together, but it wasn't, the most high-end vehicle in the world. But the ability to sit across from each other, no driver, no steering wheel, no brakes.
It can brake.
Oh, right.
No brake pedal.
No brake. Thank you.
That'd be awesome.
And I'm sure there is something approximating a steering wheel in the gears,
Yes.
or whatever, in the machinery. But just the ability to sit across each other was a very social experience. It felt fun, and you're able to control the climate for your individual seat based on a little tablet that's next to each seat. I will say the one thing that I missed compared to the Waymo experience was in the Zoox, you're not able to see the overhead virtual view of what the car is seeing from its sensors. There's no screen to show you the little squares for the buildings and the little moving vehicles.
So it could just drive off a cliff and you wouldn't know it.
You have
or drive into the Mirage or whatever.
It's right into the Bellagio fountain.
The Bellagio fountain, right.
Yeah, it's. I think is the Mirage even still there anymore? It's been a couple years since you've been to Vegas. That's right. Yeah, it's going straight for the Imperial Palace.
That's right.
At any rate, yes, you have to take a little bit of a leap of faith to get in this thing, where the Waymo overhead view for me is this reassurance. Like, you're seeing on that screen more than you're seeing with your two eyes. And in that way, it drives home the point that the car is actually probably a better driver, at least a more aware driver based on everything that it's sensing than a human would be. And you just have to trust that the Zoox is doing the same thing. You just don't have that kind of observability, to use an AWS cloud term. But I got to say, Seattle is on their roadmap.
Yeah, San Francisco and Vegas, I think.
For now, places. Yes. But for the future, they have said that one of the cities they want to go to is Seattle. And, Steph Strickland, one of the GeekWire Studios hosts, made a really interesting point. And that is, she had used Waymo as well in California. And her concern getting into the Zoox wasn't about the car so much as it was about the environment. I mean, it's hard to imagine a noisier, flashier, more crazy environment than the Las Vegas Strip for one of these cars to figure out how to navigate. And it did well. Now, I will say we took a relatively short ride.
Yeah. About how long was the ride?
It was less than 10 minutes.
And you are only going from point to point.
There's 7 stops.
But you're not really, are you programming into your phone which stop you want to end at?
Yes.
But it has a very specific route it's going on.
Yes.
And in that regard, it's very different from Waymo, where you can go pretty much anywhere.
Yes.
And it's changing and navigating based on a lot of different conditions. This is more like we're in Seattle, more like the monorail.
Right. Not quite the monorail. I would say whereas Waymo is like an open world game, this is more like a direct route through the narrative.
And I don't know, and you probably don't know this either, but like if there's a road shut or there's more traffic in one route, does it redirect and go around?
I assume. Okay. It seemed very sophisticated. And to your point, yes, it is a relatively fixed route, but it is still an active road. And as you know, like Vegas,
it's crazy.
They just had the F1 stuff there, the Formula One stuff there just recently. So like
they've torn up everything.
There's different barriers all over the place. They're still tearing down stuff. I mean, we were running into issues actually getting from the airport. I was in a taxi to the Venetian. Like the taxi driver didn't quite know what to do. So I think it's still variable enough that you can consider it a valid test of the technology. And all of us were pretty much blown away. That's the bottom line.
It's such an amazing experience to sit in one of these and do this. It's something that it really is science fiction-like to do it. It's crazy.
It does feel that way at times. It really does. So, so that was our Zoox experience. I wanted to make sure, being in Vegas, to try it out. They just launched publicly in September there, and they're also now in limited public availability in San Francisco as well. And I hope they come here. I think
it'd be great to see it work on our dark and rainy streets.
Yes, and hills. Oh my gosh, See, they may start again here with point to point, like from the Spheres to Amazon and Bellevue or something like that. Oh, that is another point. No freeways yet.
Yeah, so, I'm sure they're gonna try to get something up and running just as a showcase before the World Cup is here.
That would be smart, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
When does that start? 2026?
Yeah, June 2026.
That would be very smart.
We just had the big draw this week.
I'm so out of it on the World Cup.
Yeah, it's coming.
And I know
ready.
This is your world.
Yeah, it's my world. That's a whole another podcast.
Okay. All right, great. Thank you for catching up. Really glad we got a chance to do it. So coming up next, I'll be talking with Colleen Aubrey. She is Amazon's Senior Vice President of Applied AI Solutions, but we'll get into all of that coming up from the show floor at Amazon Web Services reInvent. Thanks again, John.
Thanks, Todd.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to GeekWire. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop, and we are on location here this week at AWS reInvent on the show floor, on the expo floor, here at the GeekWire Studios booth. And it's my pleasure to welcome our special guest to the show. Colleen Aubrey is Senior Vice President of Applied AI Solutions at Amazon Web Services. Colleen, it's great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Todd. I'm really pleased to be here.
Yes, absolutely. So we've talked in the past, and I'm looking forward to continuing that conversation here. And, previously, for folks out there who don't know, you spent many years helping to build Amazon's advertising business into really a massive revenue engine for the company. And last year, you moved over to lead AWS Solutions, as it was called at the time, overseeing the expansion of AWS into finished applications for things like call centers and supply chains and other business sectors. And the way I think about it, Colleen, is, AWS built its business offering individual Lego pieces to developers. And what you're really doing is you're coming up with pre-assembled Lego kits for businesses. Am I thinking about that in the right way in terms of your role?
Yeah, I guess the Lego analogy for me, I'm like, when we were kids, we'd have all the individual blocks. And then I think today kids, they get the kit for the ship. I'm giving you the ship.
Yes.
And you can change some of those blocks if you like. You can build around it, you can build on top of it, but I'm going to give you the ship.
Yes. I was thinking of like the Harry Potter kit or the Star Wars kit. So you can change the Millennium Falcon into something else. You can add R2-D2 or take Chewbacca out to really torture this analogy.
Yes, that's right.
In plain language, can you explain to people out there essentially what your job is?
Yeah. And I think, we talked just briefly before the show about the addition of the applied AI, I guess, to my group's name and my job title since last time we spoke. And as we got through last year and entered 2025, I started to develop this conviction, and the team started to develop conviction, is that if we weren't building products where AI was at the heart of those products, that they weren't agentic teammates from the beginning, then we were not going to really meet the needs of customers. And that the history of building software applications, software is still going to be super important. It's still going to be the engine that makes things happen for business. But if you don't have AI at the heart of that product, it was never going to be compelling. And the work to put AI to work in your business, that last mile is really hard. So we really zeroed in on the application, the applied dimension, and that AI had to be the heart of everything we do. And so that was sort of the evolution. And today I would say our vision is to enable every business to be innovating with AI teammates, and AI teammates that Amazon can put in their hands.
Well, you were on the keynote stage today with Swami Siva Subramanian, who is Amazon's Senior Vice President of AI agents now. How much do AI agents really play into what you're seeing in terms of that applied AI here in December 2025?
Yeah, in many ways, I'm Swami's customer zero.
Yes.
Everything that Swami's building are the capabilities that I need to take that agentic team force that last mile and to bring something together that has expertise. And Amazon Connect is a good example. We had we had 29 launches just this week and 4 big areas of agentic capabilities. So we're really taking everything that Swami's building, everything that the Bedrock team is building, that Agent Core gives us, and we're putting that to work and layering on a business expertise that comes to life in a teammate that we would like to see companies be able to deploy and get value from in very quick order.
Well, let's talk about that. I noticed on stage today you used the word teammate. That was really interesting because I think a lot of people, of course, are used to thinking of technology as something that is...
as a tool.
Yes, exactly. Tell me about that shift and the reason and the choice of using that word and how that's playing out for your team and for the customers who are using your products.
Yeah. So I think the frontier agents that Swami and team launched this week, these for me are examples of capabilities that will become teammates. They're able to work asynchronously. They're able to work autonomously. They're able to take responsibility for projects, for whole objectives. And I think this is where I see AI going. I think where we've been has been very task specific. We call it an AI agent, but it does sort of one thing, or it does one thing well. And it's possible that library of task AI continues to be valuable. But then I think you need a teammate that will be orchestrating, exercising those individual task capabilities, but really thinking, working backwards from a business problem in my case, and actually working with people, where I think people will increasingly be managers of AI. I think, the days of having to do the individual keystrokes ourselves, I think are fast fading. And in fact, everyone is going to be a manager. Now you have to think about prioritization, delegation, auditing, what's the quality bar, feedback, providing coaching, what are the guardrails? How do I think about the development of this AI to operate and execute in a way that delivers value for the business? And so for me, that's where I think we're going, and why teammate is such an important sort of mentor model.
It's so fascinating. What does it mean from what you've seen? As you said, you're customer zero in a lot of these cases. What does it mean for your own team as they start to incorporate these agents and work with them in terms of structure, roles, tasks? Because in some ways, I think what you're experiencing now is potentially what others are going to be implementing outside of Amazon long term. So in that way, I think it'd be an interesting litmus test for people to hear.
Yeah, so there's sort of two ways that we're trying to dog food ourselves. So from a software engineering point of view, of course, everyone in Amazon is customer zero of everything we're building in AWS to enable an agentic future. And one of the ways we're sort of tackling this I'm going to go from top and bottom. So I have a bunch of new investments. You'll start to see those products land in the new year. We have some in beta at the moment. But, we go through at Amazon, we write a press release, you write a set of FAQs. We increasingly do a prototype instead of mock-ups. And we funded some of these new initiatives. And the team will say, I think it's going to be 50 or 60 people and we'll be out in 9 months. I'm like, how about 10 people and 3 months?
Wow.
And I think when you add these constraints, like you go back to like the theory of constraints and the goal, the book, The Goal. Right. When you add those constraints, it changes how people think. It drives, you can't possibly get there if you do it the way that you've done it in the past. And I think that attracts people who are interested in that, which is cool. But it also forces the team to say, well, if that's the constraint, how will we put AI to work on our behalf in order to solve for the problem of 3 months and 10 people? And then I think now you get a proof point, and you get a little bit of social contagion within the team of people seeing and learning from each other about how they're working differently and the impact they're able to have. And then I think from the grassroots level, you have these teams that start to become evangelists. And I think also within many organizations, there's people very passionate about the capabilities of AI and very active in experimenting with this. In my own group, I have a group of AI ambassadors. And they're very energized, but their really mission is to let me share how much I can do and how differently I can work with AI. And so I think you sort of have this grassroots. And then for me, top down, I'm looking at where can I introduce constraints which drive innovation.
It's interesting because what you're really talking about here is a culture change. You mentioned the press release and the FAQ. That's the famous Amazon PR FAQ 6-pager. And then you start talking about prototypes in that context. How does your team adjust to that? I mean, because these are things that have been entrenched in the Amazon culture for decades. How does that go?
It's interesting, actually. It's happening pretty quickly.
Yeah.
I have this was self-organizing. There was a group of people that felt conviction that there was an opportunity for us to explore in the finance space. And this is the other opportunity I have, working with we have a very large finance team in Amazon. There's a really nice technical team that works in that organization. So we're doing a good amount of collaboration with them. It's trying to see what are they doing with AI that's changing what we can do within Amazon. And we're taking inspiration with that. So there's a group that said, we think we can do something in finance. And they pulled each other together from across different parts of the team, 3 prototypes, and the prototypes fed into the press release and the FAQ. And then they cycled. Right. And so it's interesting. I would get every week, there would be new prototype, new PRFAQ, what do you think? And then I'd read through it, I'd add some thoughts, and then the next week there's another iteration. And so I think it's actually happening quite organically. It's very exciting to see.
And let's be clear, when you're talking about a prototype, I can imagine this is a piece of software that was maybe vibe coded, maybe made in Kiro.
Made in Kiro.
Amazon's
That's right.
IDE. Yeah. So you're looking at actual working code, although more of a representation of what will ultimately
I
ship.
wouldn't push it to prod. Let me put it that way. but, and I think what's interesting in this particular case, I had finance analysts actually in Curo contributing to that prototype. And then you get engineers involved, you get a scientist involved, you get a UX designer involved. But the starting can come from many places now, actually, because I think the agentic coding capabilities really put that power into the hands of many more people.
Somebody can come back from a weekend away and suddenly have something to show the rest of the team,
That's
even
right.
if they're not a developer.
That's right. And historically, if I look back, I think back to my ads days, that used to happen with a principal engineer.
Right.
But now I have a UX designer coming saying, hey, I had this idea, it went into Curo, I've got this demo, this prototype, let's take a look at it.
Coming up later on the show, insights from Colleen Aubrey's role on Amazon's S team, the senior leadership team. We'll have more from Amazon Web Services reInvent after the break.
So let's talk about Connect. So this is Amazon's customer service call center application. And one of the big milestones that it reached over this past year was exceeding 1 billion in annual revenue on a run rate basis. Tell me about this product, and can you give people a sense for how you are introducing agentic AI into this? Because you had a big demo on stage today.
Yeah. I'm really excited about Connect, and I'm really excited about actually there's an acceleration in our business. And the team have done a really nice job. So it grew up contact center, it grew up AI native from the beginning with interactive voice from the very beginning of its life cycle. And it's like 8 years old now. But where the team built is that we have a nice platform and we have AI native from the beginning, where historically we're using ML, but this switch to putting Novasonic to work in voice interaction, for example, putting agents to work on completing tasks and doing work on behalf of a customer, putting agents to work with people as they're talking with customers to add personalization, to complete processes. And there's a lot that we do inside of a company to make things happen. There's more and more that you can do with AI doing that in parallel, so that the people in the customer service team can really focus on the conversation with the customer and building that long-term relationship. The other two areas we've put AI to work is looking at clickstream as a source of intelligence with customer profiles in order to do product recommendations, really looking at trying to increase that lifetime value that companies have with their customers. And finally, a piece that I think is super important. If you're going to put AI to work in your team, you need to observe it, you need to be able to inspect it, you need to understand what tools is it using, you need to understand why is it reasoning in that way. And when you understand these things, you can go into an optimization cycle. You can refine your knowledge bases, you can refine your workflows, you can refine your guardrails, and then confidently keep iterating to put the AI to work in a way that you feel comfortable with, the same way we do with each other. You know, we keep iterating, we keep learning, and we keep getting better. And so that's the fourth area for Connect that I'm really pleased about, is this observability, the understanding the reasoning, the auditing, and the controls to keep improving the work that AI does every day.
Let's break that down a little bit, because you use the phrase Novasonic that people may not be familiar with because it's new.
Good point.
Right? So this is a new version of Amazon's AI models that is all about text-to-speech, is that correct?
Yeah. Speech-to-speech.
And you demonstrated this on stage today, and I have to tell you, Colleen, this, at least in terms of the demo, I had a hard time telling that this was not a human being who was giving this guidance to you on your lost credit card, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So have we reached the point with some of these models where it's indistinguishable to customers who might be calling in to, report their lost credit card, that they're talking with a human or not? And how do you handle that?
I think the answer is yes, in terms of indistinguishable. I think in terms of customer experience, I think it is nice for customers to know when they're talking to AI and when they're talking to another person. But I do think the quality of the interaction is now very close to being indistinguishable, with a couple of areas that I think still require work. The latency needs work. And I think we're working really hard on what is like reasonable latency in a conversation. And you can get like 300 milliseconds, 200 milliseconds. Beyond that, now it's probably human perceivable that there's some sort of weird pause, and you don't want that. So there's still good work to do around optimizing for that latency. And then strangely for me, I think I'm surprised by how sophisticated, Nervosonic is in the type of conversation. And then I'm equally surprised on the other end of like, how did you get that address wrong? Why can't you spell that correctly? So
Yes.
It's sort of these interesting extremes where the sophistication of the conversation surprises me, the empathy surprises me, the naturalness surprises me. And then on the other hand, I'm like, yeah, there's still things that, that spelling was wrong, that address was not well understood, and there's still work to do to really polish that. And that's where I think this continuous learning, the reinforcement learning, when you think about pre and post processing, there's a lot of techniques to apply there.
Yeah, and then the other thing you mentioned was observability, and that was a big focus of the keynotes, not only by Swami today, but by Matt Garman yesterday. It was a part of the focus, the Amazon Web Services CEO. It sort of strikes me at times like it's almost like the IT version of HR, where you might have an HR person or a manager checking in on your performance, and in the same way you have these tools, these technologies that are going to be checking in on the agents to figure out if they're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
That's right.
And they're not off at the bar drinking at 4 in the afternoon, right?
That's right. Checking out at 10. Yeah. And well, I think this is an interesting piece because certainly from a product point of view, for me, if you don't trust an AI teammate, then you're never going to realize the full benefit. You're not going to give them the hard tasks. You're not going to invest in their development. There needs to be a level of trust. And I think from a software engineering point of view, we talk about observability. From a human point of view and from a business point of view, I think about this building this trust and being able to inspect and understand why are you recommending this? Why did you take that action? How did you get to this point? And so whether it's from a security or compliance or regulatory environment where you might take more of a log-based view of observability,
Right.
or whether it's from a business perspective and say like, just let me see, how did you get there? And why did the conversation take this turn? And where did why was it this point that you decided to pull a human in? That I think is a trust building exercise. And if we want AI to be part of the team, then that's gonna have to be part of every product.
So I can imagine a business or technology leader out there who's really adopted generative AI in their organization and understands the power of that kind of analysis, basic stuff, summarization, that type of thing. Listening to this and saying, okay, these tech companies have been talking about agents for the past year. 2025 was supposed to be the year of the agent. And of course, Todd's at AWS is a reInvent, and so this is going to be the discussion. What would you say to somebody who's skeptical right now about the actual business value of agents based on your experience? Are you seeing the kind of value that would justify somebody starting to make those initial investments to be on board as this kind of technology takes off and becomes more pervasive?
So it's an interesting answer for me. It's like yes and no. I observe companies to struggle to realize a business impact.
Yeah.
And many companies will say the ROI, the return on investment. Sometimes I think it's not necessarily like an efficiency gain, or I can say, well, I made $2 and I invested $1. Sometimes I think it's also like, I don't have that bottleneck anymore. In a development use case, we've all got backlogs as long as our bodies and then some. If I can accelerate my way through that backlog, and if I can eliminate my technical debt, if I can eliminate the code transformations I need to do, the security, the patching, the updates, all of that, and I can get into new products and services for my customers faster, that I think is like, there's a bottleneck dimension of this as well. So I think on one hand, people are struggling, and I think that also might be just the cost of learning. And on the other hand, I think if you don't start today, that's a one-way door decision, and I think it's one that you don't want to make. I think you have to start the journey today, and I would suggest people get focused, but they get moving, because if you don't, I think that becomes existential.
That's interesting. So the benefit might not be short-term revenue. You might not be launching a new product as a result of using an agent, but you might create the bandwidth for your team to come up with that new product that could generate the revenue 2 years down the road.
That's right. And if we go back to the example I shared, like where we're my own team are really going through much quicker cycles of the prototyping to the press release and the FAQs and this iteration. I think this is like shrinking the ideation period from months to weeks. And so I'm not going to see the impact on my P&L today, but if I fast forward a year, I'm going to have a product in market where real customers are using it, getting real value, and we're learning and iterating, where I might not have even been halfway there in the past.
So one thing about this role that you've been in for more than a year now is that you're on Amazon's S team. And for folks who don't know what that is, it's Amazon's senior leadership team, it's the executive team. And I'm really curious, based on that position, what kinds of insights you're able to pull from how other teams are adopting AI, how other business groups are adopting AI, and is there kind of a melding of the minds, a meeting of the minds among the S team to figure out how to adopt these things? Just sort of any kind of insights you could provide there.
I think, we've just completed a good amount of our investment in thinking about 2026 and what our team's going to be doing. And I would say that it was powerful for the executive team to see how different groups are thinking about their investments AI, and to see where we have common interests and where actually teams could work together to accelerate movement in a particular area or to deliver for customers in a different way. So I think that was really powerful. I would also say where we have, common priority is that we've created the boundaries. Like, we've created the boundaries in terms of the security and the governance, and do we feel comfortable that we're not egressing, commercially sensitive information out? And then everyone's embraced the chaos. Inside those boundaries, I think there's a really nice energy across all teams at Amazon of just like experiment fast. It's okay to try something and not fail. When you find something that works, then share it. And there are a good amount of agentic tools. Maybe I would say more AI tools, maybe not so much agentic yet, that have grown up in one team within Amazon that a month later, you've got thousands of people using it. And I think that's something that we're all sort of aligned against, of like embracing that sort of fluid and constant invention and not trying to control it, rather to unleash it.
So in preparation for this, I did go back and listen to our conversation from last year.
Yeah. Did we say sensible things? I hope we said sensible things.
You were in this trajectory. Things were not as mature at the time in terms of where they were, in terms of the evolution of the technology, but you were definitely headed in this direction. But one thing that struck me is you were talking about not just Connect at that time, but a few other businesses, life sciences, automotive. You can probably sort of rattle off the list for me, but I'm curious, where does that stand now? Is Connect sort of the shining star now that it's reached $1 billion in revenue, it's incorporating agents, and the others have kind of fallen by the wayside, or have you added new ones to them? Can you give me an overall update on the breadth of your unit?
Sure. Connect, I think this is an acceleration year. I think last year we accelerated year-over-year growth. This year we've accelerated again. So I'm really excited on the trajectory. And I think we made a lot of progress actually on our go-to-market function, of really nice work there. And so we're getting our story together. Our narrative, I think, is becoming more holistic for customers, and we're executing well there. So I'm excited about that.
And just to make sure this gets driven home for people, I mean, this is used by companies to basically automate their call centers. I mean, that's the idea. When you call in with an issue, Amazon Connect, for many companies, is powering that.
That's right.
That experience.
That's right. And I think, Accor is an interesting example. They're a European hospitality company. What they're doing is they're using Connect and AI to create more time for their customer service people to spend with customers, to create that magical experience for them, that magical vacation experience. And so they're interestingly not so much focused on, can we reduce the time we spend with customers, but rather can we increase the time we spend with customers on the relationship and less on the transactions. But yes.
I diverted you from answering my really hardball question.
Okay, I'll go back. So Just Walk Out. Just Walk Out is one of my businesses, and I think we're on a really nice trajectory there. We have made some nice changes, really at the intersection of AI and hardware at the edge. And I think that I expect us to accelerate next year. We've deployed more than 150 new stores this year, and I think that's heading in a really nice direction. Last year we talked about AWS supply chain.
Yes.
I think I'm going to declare that's a pivot. I'm going to declare that a pivot. And so you should expect to see more in Q1. But we have a good number of customers in beta with us focused on an agentic decision around supply and demand planning. And we are leveraging our own foundational model that we use within Amazon, within our stores business to do that. And so I'm excited about the development there. And then you should also expect in Q1 to see more of our investment in life sciences and antibody discovery. I'm pleased with the way that product is coming together. And again, we have some customers in beta and helping us to really get that minimum lovable product honed in. And there's a few other new investment areas which I expect to hit in early next year.
Okay, a good teaser there. So next year at reInvent, if we have the same conversation, now that would be the third year in a row, will our agents be talking to each other? Is that how it's going to work?
We could probably send them out to do a bit of a reconnaissance early on and then come back and then give us a few tips, and we'll just cut to the chase at the end.
That sounds great. Well, Colleen, Aubrey, thank you very much for speaking with me.
Thank you, Todd. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for listening. Curt Milton edited this episode. I'm GeekWire co-founder Todd Bishop, and we will be back next week with a new episode of the GeekWire podcast.